If I were king for just one day, I'd make all troubles go away. I'd banish worry from this place, command all lovers to embrace. If I were king at this very hour, the weak would be given power. All foes would be friends once more. I'd light all windows, open every door. If I were king right where I stand, I'd smash all fences through this land. Every man would have a home, a place which he could call his own. If I were king with kingly grace, I'd bring a smile to every face. I'd light the night and make it day, and give each child a place to play. The deserts I'd make fields of grain. Wherever needed, I'd send rain. The children here would have no fears, nor hungry bellies, nor even tears. Each man would be each man's brother, each woman some man's lover. There'd be no loneliness or pain, and every loss would find its gain. Yes, I would do such glorious things, if I but had the powers of kings. Despite the sentiments expressed in that verse, I do not come to you to dream impossibly, and I would not presume to cure the ills of the world by simple proclamation, even if I could. What I want to present for your inspection is the creative rationale from the God viewpoint. But of course I am not thinking of any sectarian God. By God viewpoint, I mean simply the supreme intelligence that is revealed by all our natural sciences in the creation processes that make our world. Makes no difference to me what you call this ultimate form of intelligence. The important thing is that you realize that it, by whatever name, does not and shall not play king for a day with this created world. So why, you may ask, did I play king for a day in my opening verse? Why not play God for a day? Why not indeed? I'm glad you asked. It is precisely what I am here to talk about. I think that one of the most important things I have learned as a writer is that poets may become kings and kings may become poets, but only gods may write a novel. I am not being facetious, and I do not intend to be sacrilegious. Please bear with me while I elaborate the idea. I'm sure you have heard the old cliché that there is at least one book in everybody. That may be true, but I would like to suggest that a book inside is no book at all. And I would amend the cliché to say that there are an infinite number of non-books within every human mind. To become a book, it has to come outside. That's the chief distinction between writers and non-writers. The writer is bringing his books outside. The process of moving the book from the inside to the outside is a creative process. It involves a certain amount of labor, a certain amount of understanding, and a coherent rationale. Rationale means the rational or logical basis of something. It also means a rational explanation of principles. When I speak of creative rationale, I refer to the rational basis of the creative process itself. In this discussion, I use the term to define the process that converts interior junk to exterior art, the written word, the book that you would write. And I am telling you that you have to be a god to do that. But of course what I mean by that is that you must think like God. You cannot write if you cannot think, and you cannot write like a god if you are thinking like a king, which is simply to say that you cannot think a poem and write a novel. You will write what you think. So you must think coherently. You must think rationally. And when you do that, you are thinking like God. We will get deeper into that idea in just a moment. Right now, let's make sure that we understand that a book inside is not really a book. It is a bank, a storage vault of impressions, ideas, observations, dreams, yearnings, emotions, attitudes, and a lot of that stuff has never been exposed to daylight. So there could be a lot of garbage in there. Childish expectations, irrational grievances, unbelievably putrid prejudices, hates and fears, and all the negative junk that has flowed in and become lodged in the dark recesses of the mind. It can be a pretty terrible task trying to haul out and sort out all this stuff, the stuff that screens our thinking. But you're going to have to do it if you ever intend to use it. If you're going to write a novel, then you must first establish a meaningful relationship with the self. You must understand the author, and you must come to terms with that understanding. Because, as I have said, what is inside is not a book. What is inside is you. The author is inside, you see. The book takes form outside. You build it from yourself, from your own inner content. In that sense, then, the book is you, the outside you. It is a crystallization of your own creative rationale. The imagination is a powerfully creative force, but the imagination springs from the self, not from somewhere outside. The imagination may be stimulated from outside, but the stimulation must be dealt with on the inside, and it is dealt with by the imagination. As the imagination deals with the stimulus, it clothes it in whatever garments may be hanging about inside, just waiting for a suitable vehicle for transport to the exterior world. The vehicle is your story idea, or character idea, or theme idea, or whatever you happen to be working with at the moment of stimulation. But please understand that what comes out is you. So in a sense, what you are doing is bringing the outside world inside, into yourself, where you analyze it, and then cast it out again, reformed as an image of yourself. As you write, then, you are recreating the world in your own image. You are thinking like God. To write, you must first be able to think. To write clearly, you must think clearly. To construct dramatic compositions, you must first be able to feel the drama that is life within yourself. You must feel it as drama, see it as drama, and recreate it as drama. A ho-hum idea does not build a novel. But you may take someone else's ho-hum idea, reshape it inside your own dramatic laboratory, and spit it back out as earth-shaking drama. That is what we try to do, we who write. We glimpse a worn and weary face on a park bench, an entirely ho-hum face perhaps at casual glance, but in our glimpse we are stimulated to see something in our imagination that is heroic and timeless, perhaps a face that once commanded armies, or one that seduced kings. In our imagined reconstruction of that life, we give it the form and the substance that has arisen from our interior junk, and we clothe it with our creative rationale as we return our imagery to the world outside in the building of our novel. There is so much said about discipline in writing. Let me assure you that disciplined writing flows naturally from disciplined thinking. Disciplined thinking is the natural product of a heightened and sensitive inner awareness that is coupled with a coherent view of one's own existence. Note that I said coherent view. If you yourself do not know what to make of life, how do you suppose you will ever be able to create a credible fictional world of your own? We do not simply sit down and write a book about nothing. That may sound too obvious to even bear mentioning, but it apparently is not that obvious to a great many aspiring writers, and it bears quite a bit more than a mention. Let's be brutally honest about this. How many people have you heard say, and include yourself in this brutal question, How many have said, I really do want to write. I just don't know what to write about. Well, let's keep up this brutality game. How many people do you know who are hoping to write a book about nothing? Human existence is crammed with somethings. The human mind is literally under siege by somethings. The whole created world is battering at us, demanding notice, taunting, cajoling, pleading for attention. The only attention it ever gets is from the human mind, your mind and my mind. So take the world inside and work on it. Feed it and clothe it. Send it back out again, fashioned in the image of your own understanding and empathy. And you will never have to say that you don't know what to write about. But when I say that the novelist must play God, I do not mean that he should try to depose the true order of things, that he should overthrow the kingdom of heaven, or that he should attempt to rewrite the script of existence. That is what the poet would attempt when he plays king for a day with grand wishes for a heaven on earth. The poet of my verse actually yearns for godhood, and he would, yes, he would rewrite the divine script. The poet uses the word king because it is a power word, and because he knows that his audience will understand what he really wants. He does not openly yearn for godhood because that would be a defeat of his creative rationale. That verse employs an irrational rationale. We'll get more into that later. For now, let's just try to understand that the novelist must not attempt to reshape his fictional world from an irrational premise. We do not work from the same level of approach as the poet, you see. We must labor via the intellect to involve, conspire, and rationalize. We propose and dispose, and we work through a creative rationale that somehow reflects or explores or expounds upon our own personal view of existence. Hopefully this will be an inspired view, but at the very least let's hope for a credible view. We are not creating simply a pretty piece of work, nor elaborating upon some poetic sentiment or putting on a dazzling display of words or ideas. We are indeed recreating the world in our own image. And it must be an image with clear focus and a panoramic resolution. It will not be a perfect world, because we have never encountered a perfect world with the mind. We know that our own minds are themselves imperfect, that we grapple continually with an imperfect view of a largely veiled existence. We know that the work cannot exceed its creator. And we imperfect workers who are stuck with the task do what we do, in the way that we do it, simply because for us there is no other way. We are stuck in the cross seams of the creative rationale. Not just our own, but the larger rationale as well, the one that set the stars in the heavens and started the clock of time. Imperfect, flawed, the work is this way because we are this way, and we therefore perceive reality this way. We work at our craft, sure. We sweat the creative juices and pace the infinite corridors of frustration, trying to devise new and better ways to phrase our propositions, to package our product, to frame our view. Sometimes we get lucky. Sometimes we don't. But we are hard-headed, and our skins are thick. We grow through our own imperfections, flower through our flaws, and we love what we do, even if no one else does. A novelist idle is not a novelist, but an ex-novelist. One book, and then perhaps goodbye, does not keep you in the game or qualify you for the title. A book in the future does not qualify you either, because a future book is but a book inside, and there are no books inside. Books are forever outside, and the novelist is forever building them. There is no substitute for knowledge if you would build a book, no alternative to the quest for experience and understanding. If you would write, then you must have something to write about, and you must know what that is. If you would know, then you must perceive. And if you would perceive, then you simply have to look. And to look, you must know where to look. Before you can know where to look, you must first know where you are, and what you are, where you've been, where you hope to go. To know all this with any certainty, you must have a model, a rationale. What is it all about? Why is this man laughing and this one crying? Why does the little girl dance and the little boy swagger? Why are the stars in the sky, and what is the meaning of time? Why does mankind yearn for peace but gird for war? Why do some people steal and others give freely? Why do children die and young lovers quarrel and old men shake their fists at heaven? Will all these things appear in your book? No, of course not. Not in 1,000 books, nor the answers in 10 million books. But the sensitivity to and the contemplation of such things are the clothing for your imagination and the vehicles for your thoughts as you labor through your very own personal creative rationale to reconstruct a meaningful world in coherent chunks and build your novel. Of course, I'm talking now about the foundations of the novel. I'm talking about essences. And have you ever tried to touch one, an essence, even with the mind? Isn't it strange in this electronic age that no one has ever seen an electron? We experience its effect, and we capitalize on that effect through our developing technologies. And I guess we all assume that it is there because it does serve us, but we've never seen one. I guess it's enough for most of us that our lights work, that our cars start, our stereos and TVs entertain us. We don't need to actually see the electrons. We experience their effect, and that's enough for most of us. We accept a lot of things that way. By and large, we tend to accept life itself that way. And we generally accept the novel that way. But a novel is an accumulation of essences, all working toward an experienced effect. And more often than not even the novelist can put a finger directly on them. They came to creative mind as essences. It clothed them and sent them back outside and bound them into a book. And the novelist knew that something magical wore that clothing. But don't ask the novelist what it is. He doesn't know what it is. He merely clothed it and sent it on, and it will travel to other minds in that same clothing, there to tremble in nakedness as the reader assimilates it into his own essence. The reader will say, "Yeah, great book," but do not ask him to define its greatness. Well, I think that every novel has a living soul. It is a fragment of your own soul, if you are the novelist, added to a fragment of the world soul that stole as an essence into your imaginative creative mind, and then re-imaged through your rationale and clothed for travel to another mind. Something very special and magical has happened there. In that joining of minds between author and reader in a satisfying novel, a larger quality leaps off the pages, a quality larger than the author and larger than the reader. Larger than the two combined. It is a quantum leap, larger even than the sum of all its parts. I don't know what it is. I have written nearly 100 books, but I do not know what it is. I was in a nuclear laboratory once. A physicist set up a cloud chamber demonstration for me. He shot a beam of electrons, he said, into this little glass compartment that was charged with some kind of a gas, and I saw electron tracks moving through that gas, or so I was told. I didn't see any electrons, but I saw some tracks, and I went away convinced that electrons, or something that is called electrons, had moved through that cloud chamber. Well, I'm a reasonable guy. I will accept the presence of something I cannot see, if I can at least see its effect. Okay, I believe that something like this has occurred when a reader finishes the reading of a novel with a contented sigh. He has visited the laboratory of the novelist, and there has caught a glimpse of the moving forces of human existence. And he has come away reassured that the foundations of his universe are still in place. He has seen the tracks. He has seen, to put it romantically, the hand of God. And I believe that, after all, this is what the novelist is forever pursuing, those same tracks, that same hand. And I believe it explains the quantum leap off the pages of a book, that moment when two minds converge into a recognition of a reality. I believe this is the basis of all art, whatever the medium, and of all science, wherever the laboratory. We do, after all, inhabit a magical universe. Magical, that is, from the human point of view. We do not, therefore, always trust that which we see or experience. We are forever aware, if only subliminally, that delusions and illusions abound, that the human experience is often little more than a knee-jerk response to the pressures of survival, that the experience itself is largely a product of human consciousness, a consciousness that is fragile, too often limited to sensory impressions, which themselves may perceive but one small ray of the universal spectrum of that which is. So all of mankind's involvements in the arts and sciences, I think, represent the unceasing attempt to entice new rays of understanding from the spectrum. Every novel is a laboratory, even if the novelist is not consciously aware that it is. I don't care if it's a mystery, a western, a romance, a blood-and-guts adventure, or whatever. The creative spirit is lurking somewhere within those covers, and some readers are going to touch it. That is why I am so turned off by literary snobbery. You know what I'm talking about, this idea that somehow books with great mass appeal cannot be good books. Or, to turn the idea around, that only an elite few know what is good and what is bad in literature. That is a ridiculous idea. But it is probably the largest hurdle and the greatest source of confusion for the aspiring novelist. I am not saying that there are not good and bad books. I am saying that a book is not necessarily good simply because the literary mafia has blessed it, that it is not necessarily bad simply because it is widely appealing. A desperate young housewife who finds comfort or reinforcement or inspiration in a Gothic romance has read a good book. A weary executive who turns off the pressures for a while and is delighted with the solution in a mystery novel has read a good book. A frightened and confused young man who is reassured as to the male role in life while reading a western or an adventure novel has read a good book. Whatever the medium or the platform, the creative artist is holding a mirror to mankind. As novelists, as recreators of the human situation, it is our task to touch the deeper realities and to represent them in new clothing fashioned for easier recognition. If only one of these comes through in your novel, and it comes through in easily recognizable form, then you have succeeded as a novelist. But this also points up the real heart-of-the-matter problem for the novelist. A novel is not an essay. It is not a sermon. We cannot thump the pulpit and declare that God is love. We must instead tell a story in which God is revealed as love, and perhaps without ever mentioning his name. Novelists deal with symbols, allegories, gentle persuasions. Do not scream a warning to the child at play that he must not place hands upon the hot stove. First, get his attention with a cookie, then take him aside and tell him the story of the discovery of fire, of its use for both good and evil, of the way it warms our homes and cooks our food, as well as innocent little hands. But don't mention the hot stove until you have established your premise and cemented your theme, else he may go touch just to see if you are telling him truth or fiction. That is our burden, you see. As novelists, we must make our approach through the pleasure perceptions of our readers. We must entertain. That is our paramount consideration. We must entertain. If we do not entertain, then we do not hold the attention. And if we do not hold the attention, then we have a bad book, because no one will read it, and there will be no possibility for a meeting of minds. We must entertain, and while we entertain, we must also weave in the vision that will dignify the work. Now that is not as difficult as it may sound. Not, that is, if you are writing about some things. The vision itself will shape the story and cast the characters, if the vision is there. Write about something. If you write about nothing, then the vision will not be there to guide and shape your story. The only limitation of literature has to do with its power, which is vision, and its vehicle, which has to do with amplitude. So what is all this literary snobbery about? If a book is all vision and no vehicle, who will read it, except a select few with snobbish ideas? If it is all vehicle and no vision, who will remember having read it or even care that they did? It is to me an abominable idea that a popular writer, one who enjoys a large following among a great mass of people, is somehow by that very popularity diminished as an artist, that he has been untrue to his art, that he has prostituted himself to the entertainment of the masses. It is a ridiculous idea. It is a kingly idea, not a godly one. The king, you see, represents the elite. God is the masses. Art today, the true art, is a people's art. People, not kings, are the patrons of today's art. There is your audience. Select a vehicle that is comfortable for you. Load in your vision, and then take your art to the people. Amplitude in literature may be measured only in terms of how far may it reach, across how many minds may it stretch. But please understand what I mean by vision. The vision is that essence of your novel that lodges in the reading mind, the quality that inspired our young housewife a while ago, that relaxed our weary executive, that reassured our troubled young man. The importance, or let's say the goodness, of a piece of writing is measured by the reader as some specific effect that is registered in his mind as he reads. But usually the only way the reader can relate that effect is to say, "That is a good book." What is good about it? That depends upon the reader, but it will always be some effect, however vague, some effect that has been added to the reader's own awareness of himself or his world. Coupled with that idea of vision, effect, goodness, whatever you prefer to call it, coupled with that is the idea of amplitude or propagation, the vehicular consideration. To how many minds will the vision be presented, and how many who are exposed to the vision will experience an effect? How many people have you reached?